Hello, hello, Sam Kabert. I hope I'm saying your name right, but welcome to Entrepreneur Talks podcast run by women Flix. I'm so excited to our conversation today.
I love it.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Yolo, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, amazing. Thank you as well. So, for us to start, just tell us where are you coming from or where are you talking from?
Yeah, I live in Santa Cruz, California. So it's a beautiful place in the world. I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, and then I got into spirituality a few years ago. I was like, what am I doing here? And moved to the beach about an hour away from Silicon Valley. And that's where I'm at now.
Wow, that's amazing. Sounds
Yeah.
the perfect place. Like you said, the most beautiful place in the world. I've never
Yeah.
been there, but I believe. I believe in you.
It's pretty beautiful. I love it here. I'm very, very grateful.
So where are you from?
I'm from Silicon Valley. So there's this small town called Gilroy, and it just happens to be the garlic capital of the world. And it's a farm town. It's about 30 minutes south of the heart of Silicon Valley. And that's where I grew up. It's very different than Silicon Valley. It was like going into like San Jose, where the NHL, the hockey team, the San Jose Sharks play, where near where the 49ers now play is San Jose and Santa Clara, the heart of Silicon Valley. And growing up, going into that was like the city, because where I grew up was a farm town. I mean, it was only 30 minutes away, but it was vastly different. And that's where I grew up. I spent the majority of my career in the heart of Silicon Valley, networking with the who's who. I had a podcast at the time called What Up Silicon Valley, where we interviewed movers and shakers. I still have a food show on YouTube called Eat Up Silicon Valley.
Right.
And in 2019, I was named to Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list. And that was also the same time I did a plant medicine called ayahuasca. And it got me super interested in spirituality. And from there, I moved to the beach, and I've just had blinders on for the past 3 years, just doing everything spirituality. And now I've kind of come out of that to share what I've learned through this book I just released called Soul Life Balance. And it's a guide to igniting and integrating spiritual awakenings.
Wow. Do you have the book there with you today?
Well, technically, this is live. Technically, it's released tomorrow. So, yeah, I'm more in like that podcast where it's pre-record mode, where it's like, oh, it's released. But yeah, technically, since it's live, it's actually coming out tomorrow, which is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022.
Well done. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to see that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be on your website for sure. I'm
Yeah,
sure, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. So, Sam, you said so many things that I love it, including the beach, but I want to know as well three things about yourself apart from what you do. Like, describe yourself in 3 words.
All right. I'm going to go with what's currently alive in me now, as opposed to this could change, whenever. But right now, yoga. I did a yoga teacher training a few months ago, and I started teaching yoga twice a week now, which is something I never expected. And the other would be play. Play has been integral to my own awakening process. And part of that is curiosity. So for the last one, I would say curiosity. We have to recap that, it would be what I say first: yoga, play, and curiosity. And along with curiosity comes awareness. And it's kind of like just dropping into that witness state and always becoming aware and then getting curious, right? So for me, honestly, I've been in the best place of my life over the past couple months. It hit me just like a month or so ago, just like I feel more fulfilled, happy, joyful than ever. And when I really try to unpack that, to be like, okay, but why and how did I get here? It all comes down to these things. Yoga really helps me. Like, I didn't even prep for this question, but yoga really helps me. It's my form of meditation. It's a movement meditation, slow down, be connected and grounded in my body, and then play. So many people in spirituality just get caught up in doing the work, and that's not me. Like, I know we're here to play and experience it all, and sometimes we take things too serious. And then, like I said, the last thing is
Yeah,
curiosity, and 3B would be awareness. Yeah.
beautiful. So powerful. Ah, just listening you, I just want to be part of one of your students. You living the life. You are there right now. You
I
just
appreciate
at the right place at the right time with the right people, right?
uh, appreciate it,
Do
Yola.
you
Thank
believe, do you believe in these three sentences, right?
and yeah, in right place, right time. What was the last one? Right people.
People.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. Wow. So, and your business or the work you've been doing or you've been doing is based on the soul and life balance. So it's a lot of exercise, right?
No, not really. So technically, like, because I know this is an entrepreneurial podcast. What I've done my entire career, I'm 33, so 11 years now. I started the business my last year in college. It's called Swagworks. So we do branded merchandise. We sell swag. Very simple. I used to love it, but then also being in Silicon Valley, I had a chip on my shoulder because a guy that sells branded merchandise swag like in Silicon Valley, I didn't get any respect. So I had to reinvent myself. So I started to get on boards of nonprofits. I chaired a young professionals group. We ended up doing an annual event at eBay's headquarters called Pitch Tank, and it was our version of Shark Tank. In addition to that, started the podcast, the YouTube food show I mentioned. So all that other type of stuff. And I got into content marketing. That was probably it was January 17th, 2017. So it wasn't late to the game. It wasn't early to the game. It was just like kind of there, right? Now you're never late per se, but it was like kind of when it was really ramping up. Whereas now, like, you know, everyone and their mom has podcasts, like we were saying before we hit record. Yeah, so there's that. And then after the spiritual awakening, I started another podcast called Clone Yourself, and that turned into a business. And cloneyourselfuniversity.com, that is where I teach entrepreneurs how to scale their business by building out a virtual team. And that's exactly what I did with my first business. I built my business by myself to a million, not by myself, but you know what I mean, to $1 million business with no employees, just a team of virtual freelancers and assistants. And my first book was called Working with Virtual Assistants. So that's kind of what Clone Yourself is. It's a podcast where I teach entrepreneurs how to scale their business by building out virtual teams, of courses, masterminds. And then from there, I realized that a lot of people don't want to necessarily learn how to do it. They just want it done for them. So, and we kind of shifted gears, and Clone Yourself has an offering called Wizard Teams, and that's wizardteams.com. And that's our virtual marketing agency for soulful entrepreneurs, where basically our clients just are like, hey, we want this, this, and this done. And then they have a dedicated project manager that gives them a weekly update of what's going on in their reports. And our clients don't see what's going on. Like they don't have to recruit, train, manage, hire anything, any people, because we use our team internally. So it's super easy for our clients. So that's that. And then Soul Life Balance, this came to me in an ayahuasca plant medicine ceremony in 2019. And I knew my next book would be about soul life balance. And I was even leading weekly calls for a few months, just for like friends and whatnot, just talking about soul life balance. But I never really felt ready to write the book. That is until May of 2021. So nearly 2 years after the idea came to me. And I was in Costa Rica for a month and I started writing the book. And then I stopped when I came back. And then at the fall of last year, 2021, I was like, okay, I feel ready to write the book. And then I went to Costa Rica again last year for a month for the yoga teacher training. And after that, I wrote a lot more for the book. And then I finished it when I came home. And now I'm finally at this place where it's like, okay, now that the book is done, this is where I'm going next. I'm going to start getting into public speaking. And this is really the message. I've kind of like talked about soul life balance on my podcast, on other people's podcasts and things like that. But now that I have the book, it's kind of like, okay, I have the anchor, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So I heard about four businesses, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I love it. I love it. That's entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I say serial entrepreneur turned spiritual seeker. That's what I label myself as.
It's amazing. It's amazing how the road took you, and we don't know what is coming next, but something will come after. So I don't know when, but this is
Absolutely.
fantastic. So you, and in terms of your going back to your business before the soul life balance book, in terms of marketing, who is your ideal client?
Yeah, so that's a great question for Swagworks because there's a few. Were you talking about a specific
No,
company or
no,
all of them?
you can bring
Okay.
any of them, any of the businesses.
Yeah, for Swagworks, we work with a lot of admins and event planners, mostly. That's been the target market there. You know, it's branded merchandise. So for either employee gifts, holiday gifts like that, client gifts, trade shows, things like that. So our clients tend to be more admins, event planners, some marketing departments. What Up Silicon Valley, or my first podcast with a co-host, that was a movers and shakers show in Silicon Valley. And I kind of stumbled into it in terms of the ROI because it was more of just like something fun I wanted to do. But it turned into like when we would interview these C-level execs, I would bring them branded merch, swag. And then my co host would be like, oh, yeah, we call him Swag Sam. This is what he does. He does swag. Then they would go, oh, why don't we buy our swag from you? And I'd be all innocent. I don't know. Why don't you? And then they would tell their employees, their, you know, people that buy the swag to buy from us. And then within the first 18 months, I tracked all of our expenses for the podcast, the cost of goods sold for the products themselves and everything. And I made $60,000 net in 18 months off the podcast. And that's when I was like, okay, content creation's legit. I'm not going to track this anymore.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the swag business. Then we were hit with the pandemic. Business has been down 80%. And I have already wanted to kind of like veer away from swag since the spiritual awakening. So I have a lot of friends who are doing great still in their businesses. Some are struggling, but a lot are still doing great. For me, I'm just like, you know, I was already veering away. I'm not putting much time into it. We're being more reactive, responsive, as opposed to like hunting. It's more of like farming at this point, which is fine. I'm happy with that. Clone Yourself, that is the virtual assistance like teaching that we do. So for that one, man, I just went on rambling and now I forgot what your question was.
Clone one. No, who is your ideal
Oh,
client?
ideal. That's right. Yeah. So for it's also 8:30 my time
Yeah.
a.m. So I'm still drinking the coffee, waking up, and I have this great drink though called Magic Mind. They're a sponsor of my Soul Seeker podcast, and it's a little nootropic, and haven't drank that yet. It kind of gets the cylinders, the brain fire in all cylinders. Anyway, so for Clone Yourself, really more like solopreneurs. I mean, obviously any small business, but whereas with swag, it's like big corporate, like tech
Mhm.
companies, healthcare, whatever. With Clone Yourself, it's more like the content creator, things like that, where it's like you might be on that kind of edge where you're going to hire your first or next employee, something like that. Maybe your virtual assistant curious. That's kind of the audience there. And one of the main pillars that I teach with my Clone Yourself business is that, you know, so many people talk about like hiring a virtual assistant, but
Yeah.
the thing is, you want to hire a team of virtual assistants. You want to hire specialists in specific categories and then have a project manager manage the other one. So I teach how to do that there. And then wizard teams, it's pretty much the same audience, except they don't want to learn or take the hassle of doing it themselves. They just want a team ready to go and it's done for you. So with wizard teams, right now our opening package is only $500 a week, so it's super
Mhm.
simple. It's easy to say yes. I mean, that's less than a full-time employee. You know, $2,000 a month, and you get a team of specialists in all these different niche areas for whatever you're wanting to do. We specialize in marketing, so it lends itself really well to content creators, or really any business
Yeah.
needs marketing help. But we don't like get involved with like finances and customer service and things like that though.
Oh wow. How
Yeah.
can you deal with so many things to do with these four businesses? I know the first one, the two first, right? They know you're not doing that much anymore, right?
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm working just as much as I am in the swag business as I was before. And I work less than 4 hours a day. Yeah, because it doesn't take much to process an order. I mean, this is why I wrote the book on virtual assistants and I started the business, because people would be like, how are you able to do so much? I had a podcast called Brand Hero. I had one called Mojo Mondays, What Up Silicon Valley podcast on multiple boards. I was like VAs. And they'd be like, what's a VA? I was like, a virtual assistant. So that's how this all started. And I mean, the real uh, pillar of success here is to double down on your strengths and hire or outsource for your weaknesses. And I mean, I really only do the things that require my specific skill set. And it's things like this, right? Like this requires my skill set, but to go on the back end and, like create a website and whatever, that doesn't require it. What I do is I have a ton of templates, free templates too, but like because I have so many different websites, I have different templates for landing pages and campaigns or websites, all this type of stuff. And yeah, I take the time to write the copy. That doesn't take that long, but then I send it out to my team, and my project manager manages the graphic designer, the web designer, and all the different things. And same thing when I do a podcast. Like if I'm recording a podcast remote like this, I just have, a notepad right here, and it makes it so easy when you record remote, because I just jot down the time that I start, and then when a guest says something interesting, I jot down the timestamp, and then after the podcast is over, then I go back and I'm like, okay, it started at 3:15 whatever, and then I wrote down 3:45. Okay, 3:45 minus 3:15 is 30 minutes. Let me go to the 29-minute mark, and then I just listen for the clip. I give the timestamp and the name of the clip to my team, then they do all the graphics, the video, and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I want to be the one that chooses which
Really
clip
good.
I share.
Yeah, now I got it. Now I got it.
Yeah.
It's good to bring this kind of questions, and because people will ask, like you said, oh, how he does this, all this stuff, but there is
Yeah,
so
no, you're asking great questions. I mean, yeah, really, like if we can, and it goes back to the three words at the beginning, right? Like if you want to play more, you can't be working all the time.
right.
You want to do yoga and things like that. So then it goes back to your curiosity, like in your question, like, how are you able to do this? Okay, now coming back to awareness. Well, where am I spending time on
I,
in things on my business? I want to be working on my business and not in it.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I love your phrase that you just mentioned before, which was saying, I do take my time or something like that to do what I can do, what I know how to do. Because some people struggle, they keep going into website, they don't know how to do it, but they stay there all day, all night trying to figure out how to create a website or a landing page when they could have a virtual assistant, something.
Yeah. And that also goes hand in hand with the leap of faith, because a lot of people are first time entrepreneurs these days, which is fantastic and amazing. And what that entails is, even if you're not a first time entrepreneur, whatever, like if you're kind of strapped for cash, that's like that leap of faith where it's like, it's not that expensive to hire someone to help you out. But a lot of us like have in our heads, like, well, I can't afford that because I don't have revenue coming in yet. Well, this is that leap of faith. Like you can find that $500, that $1,000, whatever it is, that's going to keep you going and moving forward. Because if you're spending time, I was talking to a buddy on the phone yesterday where he's asking me all these questions about like websites and stuff. And I go, I can tell you like how I would do it. But if you're asking me how I go in the back end and what to do, like, bro, I don't do that. My team does that. And I would suggest the same for you. But that's that kind of leap of faith where they have to understand that if they find the money to hire someone, they can be more productive working on revenue dress, whereas being in the back end building is not revenue driving.
It is true.
So
So
yeah.
true. Thank you, Sam. You are awesome. Wow.
You're wrong, Yella.
Are you
Thanks.
teaching, and are you teaching yoga, which is amazing. I've done yoga for many years, but right
Nice.
now I just do meditation. But I totally understand when you say you find your way into yoga, and you're already teaching, right? You
Yeah.
said a month ago or so.
Yeah, it was wild. I came back and within like 2 weeks I was teaching. I had my first demo and she's like, "Yeah, all right, cool." And then I talked to the studio I've been going to for 3 years and been like kept texting her because I had a relationship. And then finally she's like, "Oh, you're teaching at this other place? Oh yeah, here, sub." And then she came to the class I subbed for her studio and she's like, "Yeah, just you're good. We'll start going." And honestly, like it's weird because when I first got to the yoga teacher training, I was asking the instructors, I was like, so how long is it after like we graduate do people usually start teaching? They're like, what do you mean? And I go, well, because like I get that this is a program and everything, but you know, probably need some practice. And I was sitting there thinking, like, first of all, when I got there, I had zero intention of teaching. I didn't want to teach. It was all about my own development. And then the first night, they had us like just do a very sample, like small, like practice teach thing. And I could tell that the way I was showing up was not good because I was showing up like, oh, I don't want to teach, so I wasn't really giving it my all. So the next day I totally switched and I was like, okay, I'm going to pretend I do want to teach because this is going to be miserable if I do that, plus this is going to be good for my own development. And
Yeah.
then by the end of it I was like, shoot, I think I want to teach. And part of that is because I do want to get into public speaking, and teaching yoga is such a good way, even though it's like different than public speaking, but
Yeah.
it's still getting in front of people you don't know and speaking. And in addition to that, like I start my classes with kind of most yoga classes do with a deep thought and then some breath work, some light breath work. And that's kind of the same thing I'm going to do with my public speaking. I'm going to drop people into like a brief meditation, some light breath work, and not be like your average public speaker. So for me, I love the opportunity. I'm super grateful for it, you know?
Wow. Wow, wow. And do you wow, I love it. Do you teach yoga, and at the same time do you have clients that you work one to one, or is just related with your business? Sorry about my dog barking.
You're good. Yoga, like I would not teach someone one-to-one yoga because like I was even watching a documentary about yoga last night and how there's different like yoga teachers. And I definitely fall under the bucket of more philosophy than
Mm,
I do like movement. Cause I'll be the first to say, like, if I'm in a yoga class, like, and there's some pretzely twisty move or even a headstand, I'm like child's pose, like it's not really the body for me. I'm not the best that way. For me, it's because there's 8 limbs
my
of yoga and only one of those is the actual movement, the asanas. So there's so much more to it. So all that said to say, as of now, at least, I'm not doing any like one-on-one there. For Clone Yourself, where I work with entrepreneurs, I work one-on-one. Although now I'm shifting more to a mastermind style. I used to do both. I'd either work one-on-one or mastermind. And then I do have a men's program that is coming out in a month or so. And it's going to be like the content of the book. It's not going to be your typical men's program. It's going to be a little bit different, where involves business as well. And it's not like necessarily men's work like a lot of men's programs. It's more just like a container of men so that it will bring about like that type of stuff where there's just like that safe for men to soften and things like that and be vulnerable. But like I said, it's not going to be your traditional men's group where everything is about that. It's just like that will be a component of it.
What is the title of the program?
That is The Way of the Balanced Man. So
Mm,
the book is Soul Life Balance. So the idea is there's some continuity there in terms of I initially was going to call it The Way of the Graceful Man because I think a lot of men, like myself included, like just I used to get made fun of in college when I would do yoga or whatever, all this different stuff. I had an idea a couple of years ago, like owning your woos. I call myself owning your woo. I call myself a recovering bro, all that type of stuff. And like we look at Joe Rogan as a leader and an influencer. And I mean, I used to listen to his podcast all the time, and he talked about how challenging yoga is. And literally, because Rogan is like such a manly man and he's talking about yoga, I was like, oh, that's like a metaphorical permission slip for me to try yoga again. And really, that is so much of the conditioning and programming of our society for men, where like we need to soften. So that was kind of why initially I was saying the graceful man. But then again, it doesn't really, some men that aren't there yet, like that will be a little too soft. So that's why I changed it to balanced.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Both one of the one of other sounds really good. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. love, I love your story, your journey, and what you're doing in the world. This is amazing, Sam. This is
I
amazing.
appreciate Yellow.
I'm in the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would come for your class. I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
you sound like wow, so nice, because it's really important, like when it comes to yoga example, it's very 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 important what you said. You mentioned that it's not just about the body, and it's not about the body, because a lot of people can turn themselves like, I never been able to do all that flips and moves. But my aim was to get into myself and relax and feel the ground, be grounded.
Mhm.
And it is that teaching that I love, and you just do that, you teach that, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the most important part, and one of the things I talk about in my yoga classes, it's something that came from the book, um, but it's the idea of the symbol of infinity. So at the beginning, like, a lot of people are familiar with hip circles, where you're on tabletop and you do circles, and then sometimes you might do a figure eight. So I just go through this thing. I'll say it short right now, say it briefly, but basically, while we're doing those figure eights and tabletop, which is basically like moving around in a figure eight when you're on your knees and your palms, I say, I like to call them infinities. And if we flip the figure eight to its side, either side, because symmetrical, we can see the symbol of infinity. And the symbol of infinity has a lot to teach us. If we look at it, it's got its highs and its lows, its peaks and its pits, just like the human
Ooh,
experience, right? But it always comes back to meet itself exactly where it's at. So the invitation is, next time we're in a peak, right? Can we drop back and realize this is part of the human experience and not get so lost in this high so that we come crashing down? And the same with the lows, not get so low and down ourselves, just realizing, hey, dropping back to that witness, this is part of the human experience, and we're going to come back to meet ourselves where we're at. And I think the symbol infinity, just looking at it like that, and on a daily basis, a moment to moment basis, just getting curious and bring more awareness to where we're at, just being like, hey, this is just part of the human experience. Like, we're just having fun here. We're living out all our other lives right now in different dimensions and timelines, past, present, are happening right now, concurrent on this planet and other planets. What's the big deal? We don't need to take things so serious, right?
yeah, yeah, that's so true. Yeah, yeah, totally. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you, thank you. We're gonna come to the end. It is amazing. I'm so grateful for your presence, and I also want to ask you one more thing. One, no, two, just came to my mind. Another one, but the first one is, what could you leave a tip to anyone about with everything that you've done or you're doing so far? What would you say to another entrepreneur today?
Yeah, I think it's just whatever you're doing, whether it applies to business, life, relationships, personal, whatever the case may be, but choose something, right? And are you doing this thing because you want to do it, or because you feel like you're supposed to be doing it? And if it's something that you feel and you start to realize that you're supposed to be doing it, then start tracing the origin of that and getting curious and see if you can make a shift that will be something that will be more desirable for you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you. That's really good. And the last one is, how can people connect with you on where and how?
Absolutely. Yeah, so samkabert.com, Kabert spelled K-A-B as in boy, E-R-T, samkabert.com has everything there. I'm mostly on Instagram for social media, also at Sam Kabert, and you can find the book stuff there as well. But to go straight to the book, that's soullifebalancebook.com. So samkabert.com is really the easiest. But yeah.
Fantastic. So the social media that Sam just mentioned is on the description of this podcast, so anyone can get in touch with you and find more about your book that is going to be released 22nd of February to 2022, right? It's
Yep, 2 Yep, tomorrow.
2022 to 22. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it
Wow.
was intentional. Big portal tomorrow.
You choose that day then. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Sam. And I appreciate you and God bless you. Keep doing what you're doing. Amazing job work that you're doing.
Same to you, Yola.
Yeah,
I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you so much. It was a
thank you.
pleasure.
You take care. Bye bye.
Bye.